Morning everybody. As you can see, it's very early in the morning. I had to be up early this morning doing something today, so yeah. Right, today's video. So last night we saw some atrocious scenes from the centre of London again by the pro-Palestine action group and other extremist groups that support the people in Palestine. So we've had the Palestine action group and their supporters putting out social media posts and other things, trying to cause outrage and sympathy because their supporters were blind, disabled, elderly. But this is exactly why they use these people. They use these people to do that. They want these people, they want the public to be outraged and to have sympathy for them when they see OAPs being arrested by the police because they're supporting a prescribed terrorist group. This is what they want. This is part of their tactics. So it's not the police that should feel shame for this. It's Palestine Action, because they use these vulnerable people as part of their propaganda, as part of a way to garner sympathy for themselves and their cause. So the shame is all on them. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for their terrorist tactics. This is what they do. Once again, we saw two-tier policing in London for the Unite the Kingdom rally. We had the police out in full riot gear, didn't we? Once again, police just out in no batons drawn, no riot helmets, no riot shields or anything like that. Nobody getting absolutely battered. I know there were several, I think it was close to 700 arrests last night in London, in the centre of London. When you compare that to the Unite the Kingdom rally, where there was over an estimated 3 million people out on the streets with just 28 arrests, that kind of puts it into perspective just who the violent people are in society. It's not the Patriots, it's the Palestine Action, it's the pro-Palestine extremist groups that are out there. Yet it's the bogeyman far right that is deemed as the threat, which we all know is just smoke and mirrors. Absolute smoke and mirrors. It's to demonise, that is to demonise legitimate criticism of the government. That's why the Patriot movement is labelled as far right, because it's just an easy way for people to dismiss the regime, the Starmer regime, to dismiss people with genuine concerns about what's going on in this country. Now, I've talked a lot about civil war on this channel, speculating about it. Once again, not inciting violence or anything like that. This is just me giving my observations on society at the moment. But this is one of my predictions. I did this prediction months ago in one of my live streams. I said, I don't think that the coming civil war is going to be between the Patriots and the state, because the Patriots are constantly looking for peaceful ways to resolve this issue. Nobody on the Patriot movement wants a civil war. Anybody with an ounce of sense anyway, or anybody that's actually been in a war, would want that for this country, like myself. I've been in war, I've been in combat zones. I don't want my children to see that, because a civil war, like I said in live streams before, a civil war isn't a 9-to-5 job where you get to clock off at the end of the day. War is 24/7. It never goes away. It's always there. And it's not going to be fought in some faraway country that you don't know the name of. A civil war will be fought in your street, in your back garden, and your children will see it. So, whoa. I always get something when I'm out walking. I always get something weird. So yeah, don't be so quick to advocate for civil war, because it's not like Call of Duty. You don't get to respawn. Once you're dead, you're dead. And let's have a look at what civil war would mean. Civil war, if it was a total outbreak of civil war in this country, it would be the total breakdown of society. There would be no law. Most likely, food chains, supply chains would break down. Your local supermarket wouldn't have food. People would start to starve. People would start to starve. Now you've got to ask yourself a question. Is that something you really want for your children? Is that something you want your children to see? Do you want them to see, walking down the street, dead bodies lying everywhere? Because I've seen that. I've seen that. Where the war is so intense that the bodies aren't cleared off the battlefield, they're just left. And all you can see is rotting corpses everywhere. This is the reality of war, everybody. This is what your children will see. That's why myself and others seek a peaceful resolution to this current situation. We're looking for peaceful, non-compliant solutions rather than all-out warfare. Because even though we're on that path, that is something we're all trying to avoid at all costs. We really are. So back to my prediction. My prediction a few months ago was that it wouldn't be the Patriots that started a civil war in this country. I said it would most likely be the Islamists trying to take control of the country. And if you look at them at the minute, we're starting to see a lot of parallels between what happened in Iran when there was a regime change there, when the Islamists took over, and here. We're starting to see the Islamists becoming more and more emboldened. Now, a lot of people probably thought that event down in London yesterday was just a load of rowdy thugs fighting with the police. I saw it in a different light. I saw a group of well-organised people testing the resolve of our security forces. That's what I saw. This is what they do. They send out their groups, they test the tactics, and they learn from it. I saw it out in Iraq. They used to do it to us. They would send out little groups to test our defences, and then they would attack in force. Now, when we were out in Iraq, we adapted to those tactics that they were using. Now, unfortunately here, the police have got their hands tied. They're not allowed to do their job. They're not allowed to adapt to those tactics because they have a woke hierarchy. They have DEI superintendents, they have DEI inspectors, they have DEI sergeants that really shouldn't be in the job. They have no clue what they're doing, and basically they're putting their officers at risk. The police simply aren't trained to deal with an Islamist threat in this country. They're not. Our police force is a high trust police force. They're trained to be and operate in a high trust society. And this is what's changed in this country. We're no longer a high trust society. We haven't been for a long time. So a high trust police force trying to operate in a low trust society, there's going to be issues there. They're going to fall short with their training. They're not going to know how to deal with the threats that they now face. And we see this constantly. They didn't know how to deal with that threat last night in London. They didn't. And it's because their hands are being tied, the wokerati are telling them to hold back because they don't want to cause a scene, because they don't want to upset a certain demographic in our society. And that will be their downfall. That will be their downfall. So what I'm seeing is a rise in hostilities with the Islamists. So I think pretty soon, but I honestly believe that the civil war is going to come from the Islamist side. They're going to try and take over this country. We've already seen it. You've seen how many towns and cities have fallen to the Islamists. They now have Islamist leadership. They have Islamist councils. They have Islamist mayors. You've only got to look at London. Sadiq Khan, Islamist mayor, two-tier policing under his watch. So yeah, that's my prediction. That's what I garnered from those events last night in London. I didn't see a rowdy rabble causing trouble. I just saw a well-organised extremist group of people testing our police's resolve, testing their tactics, learning from them. And the police need to be aware of that. That's what they're doing. So don't fall for Palestine Action's tactics of trying to garner sympathy by recruiting the vulnerable into their ranks, because that's what they do. I mean, obviously, the blind person being arrested. Why would you have that? Why would you have a person like that within Palestine Action? That for no other reason that for when they get arrested, they're going to make headlines, aren't they? That's the first thing the woke mainstream media is going to do. Look at what the police are doing. They're arresting blind people without actually heading into the tactics behind why that's happening. Why would a prescribed terrorist group recruit vulnerable people into its ranks and then put them out on a protest where they know full well that they're going to get arrested? It's to grab headlines, it's to grab sympathy, and it's to grab outrage for themselves. Don't fall for it. This is Vindicator, sign off.